So the same kind of technology that makes tap to pay possible is the new target of this Android malware. Should you be concerned? What do you need to know? All this and more in this episode of Exploit Brokers. Today we are facing an unprecedented array of data breaches, hacking attempts, and surges in digital crime. Why is there such a widespread amount, and how little is noticed in our everyday lives? Malware, dark sites, brute forcing, zero-day script kiddies, and nation-state hackers are all on the rise. Learn more about the threats we face and gain a bit more knowledge than yesterday. Hey everyone, another episode of Exploit Brokers is coming to you now. Hey guys, welcome to another episode. Please do me a favor to help the channel grow. Hit the like, subscribe, and bell notification icon if you're on YouTube, and please follow us and leave a review if you're on something like Spotify or Apple Podcast. It helps the channel grow and it helps me immensely by helping spread this information to those that may need it. This is Laudo and welcome to another episode of Exploit Brokers. So guys, in today's episode, we're reading from an article by Dark Reading. We're going to talk about it. NFC traffic stealer targets Android users and their banking info. NFC, for those who may or may not be aware, is the technology that essentially makes it easy for your phone to use a tap to pay. Whether you have Apple or Android, a lot of that tech is usually based off NFC, or near field communication is the more technical term. So the malware builds on a near field communication NFC tool in combination with phishing and social engineering to steal cash. Now I know this kind of sounds freaky, but we'll talk into the details and I'll give you an idea of how you can protect against it. It's not exactly a zero day or RCE, but let's kind of dive into those details. A dangerous new Android malware has surfaced that can clone contactless payment data from physical credit card and debit cards and relay it to an attacker's Android device, enabling fraudulent transactions. Researchers from ESET, who are tracking the malware as Endgate, described it this week as the first of its kind they observed in the wild. Leveraging a legit tool. Another subsection of the article. Endgate is actually based on NFC-Gate, a tool that students at Germany's University of Darmstadt, I'm mispronouncing that, developed to capture, analyze, and alter near-field communication or NFC traffic. So whenever you talk about networking protocols, wireless protocols, think Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, there's always going to be a tool that lets you read information, inject packets, and do different kind of things. Usually this falls under the idea of something like a software-defined radio, SDR, but there's pretty much Bluetooth injection and other things you can go about. Wi-Fi deauth attacks and just kind of things like that. And there's a lot of cool gadgets and tools that let you play with different tech at different points, right? And some of the stuff you can even do from a software level, right? So if you're thinking TCP/IP, you can manipulate the way packets are generated and pretty much forge packets to send onto a network. But here we're talking about specifically NFC and a device that lets you pretty much mess with, capture, sniff, analyze, and look at NFC traffic. So NFC is what allows devices such as smartphones to communicate wirelessly with each other over short distances. The university students have described NFC-Gate as a legitimate research tool for reverse engineering protocols or for assessing protocol security in different traffic conditions. Among other things, NFC-Gate can capture NFC traffic that applications running on an Android phone might send or receive, relay NFC traffic between two devices via a server, replay captured NFC traffic, and clone identification and other initial tag information. I believe it's for research purposes to demonstrate it is possible to extend the distance of NFC contactless communication that is only up to 5 to 10 centimeters by using Android phones, said Lucas Stefanko, ESET senior malware researcher. So you're really getting into this area where you're trying to do stuff with NFC that we've seen on Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and like software-defined radio stuff. The idea of a replay attack is something that's been used by car thieves over time to pretty much replay whenever a car sends the unlock or the turn on signal from the key fob. There is stuff like rolling codes and different ways to kind of prevent against this, but NFC I don't believe has the same kind of maturity that some of the other technologies might. It's been around for a bit, but it hasn't been used as methods for secure related items. Think, key fobs and other stuff have more security mechanisms built into it because they've been hacked. NFC is still kind of new. Use it for like cloning your ID badge to get into a building. Your amenity center from an apartment or an HOA or something like that might have a key fob that uses NFC, and phones have it. But realistically, this isn't something that was widely used or adopted up until the recent mainstream, versus stuff like Wi-Fi hacking has been around for quite a while, since WPA and WEP hacking from a long time ago to even the more modern stuff like Wi-Fi DAuth attack that go against stuff like WPA too. So if we keep going, and the article actually starts to touch into it, the sneaky scam. The scam involved the threat actor, likely a 22-year-old recently arrested by Czech authorities, sending SMS messages to potential victims in Czechia, I'm mispronouncing that, about a tax-related issue. People who click on the link ended up with a progressive web app, PWA, or a web APK, an Android package, that fished for their banking credentials and sent it to the attacker. Attackers have long used similar apps to get users to divulge their banking info. So here's the first piece of advice I'll give to any of my listeners. If you ever get someone calling you telling you to install this app and they send you a link, don't click it. If you ever are in doubt, always install apps only from the Android Play Store. You never want to download, never want to install something that isn't from official channels. And even then, don't just download something from the Play Store because it's on the Play Store. Although Google does a lot of things and Apple for the App Store, although they do a lot of things that make it so it's harder to put malware on these kind of stores, it's not impossible. There is ways to bypass it, and there have been incidents where there's been malicious apps that have been on the App Store for a long period of time. So the easiest way to guard yourself is A, only install from a trusted source, the Play Store or the App Store, and only install apps that you know you want or need for a specific purpose. If you're downloading some shady app that looks like a misspelled version of your bank, that's probably a red flag that you shouldn't install that. So the threat actor would call the potential victim pretending to be a bank employee, notifying them about a security incident related to their account, and requesting them to change their PIN and verify their card. Victims who fell for the social engineering trick receive a link to download Endgate, which then executes a series of steps to enable fraudulent ATM withdrawals. Again, here they got a phishing attack where they got some kind of, the user was contacted by their bank, quote unquote, and they were instructed to download something. And then once you download something that isn't from the appropriate channels, even sometimes from the appropriate channels, then it starts to do things. You've essentially installed a piece of malware on your device. After being installed and opened, Endgate displays a fake website that asks for the user's bank information, which is then sent to the attacker's server. ESET said the malware prompts victims to enter their banking client ID, birth date, the PIN for their bank card, and other sensitive information. It also asks victims to enable the NFC feature on their smartphone and to place their payment card at the back of their smartphone until the malicious app recognizes the card, ESET said. So, a lot of the NFC devices are also now, or a lot of the NFC tech, better said, is now ingrained even into stuff like credit cards. Before you had the swipe, and after the swipe came the chip, and then around the time the chip came out, they also rolled out the tap to pay, the wireless. So you have tap to pay on your mobile device, Google Pay, Apple Pay. You even have like Garmin and Samsung Pay and different variants of that. And then you have the actual Wi-Fi one that goes on, or not the Wi-Fi, but you have the NFC one that goes on the card itself. And they're using the fact that the NFC reader on your phone can read that NFC card to pretty much steal information that's relevant to that. Now, all that comes back to something called tokenization, and I'll touch on that momentarily, but it's why this attack can kind of work. And I'll break down some of that technical information in a second. So, at this point, Endgate captures NFC data from the victim's card and sends it through a server to the attacker's Android device. The attacker's Android phone would need to be rooted or compromised at the kernel level for it to be able to use the relayed data. The NFC data allows the attacker to essentially clone the victim's card on their smartphone and use it to make payments and withdraw money from ATMs that support the NFC feature. If the method failed, the attacker's fallback was to use the bank account data the victim had already provided to transfer funds from the victim's account to the other banks, ESET said. So all this kind of goes back to the tech that underlies it. So the way that Google Pay, Android Pay, and Apple Pay and all these kind of work, right, is the idea of tokenization. Whenever you register a card or something with Apple Pay or Google Pay, it creates a token. And this token is shared between, it's pretty much stored on your device. Your device doesn't necessarily hold the credit card information. It holds a token. This token is then sent to the payment processors, who they then decrypt it. And I'm oversimplifying, right? But they then decrypt it, or they figure out, they do like a lookup on the token to get the actual credit card or debit card information to process a transaction with the bank. Now that they've done all that, then you can make your payments. Well, here the attackers are using the app that's installed on your phone to essentially hijack that token. Because they've hijacked that token can then be used on their device as a way to fake having your card, because it's a token that they can use. When I was doing some research on this article, the reason the phone has to be rooted is because when you root the device, you should be able to access secure parts of the phone and secure parts of the memory that's held in the Android system. Whenever you can access these sensitive parts of memory, you're pretty much doing memory hacking at that point. You can add in fraudulent tokens, which would be the tokens that the hacker stole. And whenever the hacker adds in these tokens to that store, they should be able to use it. Now, is there probably a cracked version of Google Pay or Apple Pay or some other stuff that goes into it? Yeah. This is just an oversimplification of how the whole system works, right? Whenever a token is generated and held on a device, and that's transmitted to the bank, who then is able to use that token to look up the credit card information. Well, here the hacker is stealing that token, pretending to be the user with the token, and then trying to do those fraudulent transactions. Now, if they get to an ATM that has an NFC enabled, which is what the article is kind of stating here, then they can pretend to have your card and withdraw information. And if you were able to get social engineered and put the PIN and other information into the app that they installed on your device, well, they have everything they need to pretend to have your card and pull all the money that's available on that card. This is just what we're seeing, right? This is a very social engineer targeted attack. And we're really seeing a shift from some app actors and some hackers going to the very sophisticated surface, to like RCE, 0 days, overflow bugs and things like that, to some hackers using something more like this, where they're advancing something, but they're still using tried and true methods, which is social engineering. They're not trying to burn a 0 day to try to install this on your app. They're just kind of playing a numbers game and seeing who installs it, and then trying to take whatever money they can from that. Now, there was some other malicious use cases, such as them being able to hijack transport tickets, ID badges, membership, or student cards, or similar use cases. Pretty much anything that could be NFC used, I'm assuming they'll be able to steal and send somewhere. And there's even the idea that if they're able to get that information right away, they can make the phone pretty much mirror that token right away. Now guys, the easiest way, again, to prevent against this, or at least the way that you can make it very difficult, your bank will never call you until you've installed stuff. And if they ever do, say, cool, let me call you back, and then actually go to your bank or call a number that you know is related to your bank and ask them if they want you to do this. Because 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100, it's not your bank. That one time that was like the fraudulent alert department calling you to say, hey, we need to verify these transactions, that could be real. But if they're calling you, just assume that your data is leaked and people can get information that sounds like only your bank would know, but they probably haven't. Guys, thank you for watching another episode. I will see you in the next one.